I make a point to not give my energy to all of these fear-based news stories that are constantly being thrown at us. But the systematic justice that is occurring in our world is unavoidable. In what is supposed to be the most free country, the United States of America, we have ludicrous things happening with the police state, being at such an extent that it is systematically, yes, systematically, killing people of color. So there is a systematic racism component to this. And also tied in with this is we're not as free as we've been led to believe. And the police state and this police brutality that we're seeing is a manifestation of this. And another thing regarding this topic is I just came up with a little analogy regarding this all lives matter. So that's a response to Black Lives Matter. Saying all lives matter is it's like saying that all of the parts of your car matter if you go to a mechanic and he says your oil light is on. Do you get what I'm saying? So one thing is disharmonious that needs to be addressed, but you keep telling the mechanic that all of the parts of your car matter. You know, something needs to be addressed, and that's where all lives matter gets it wrong. We have problems, specific problems going on in our society that need to be addressed. So to say all lives matter is not to address those specific problems. And this ties in with a lot of liberal type people say that they're colorblind, which is complete denial. Like, I'm the first to say that I'm not colorblind. However, I've also come to the conclusion that skin color is not the totality of one's identity. It's merely an adjective. We are much more than skin color or our bodies or our labels of nationalism like being American or whatever religion people subscribe to. We are much more than that. So obviously I see color differences with people, but it's not the totality of who they are. It's a mere adjective. So I don't wrap people's whole identities in that because I don't wrap my whole identity in it. It's like driving a car. I have a blue car, and if I see someone in a red car, I'm not I'm not going to have this chasm between us because they're driving a red car because I know it's their car. I could see the difference, of course, but I know it's their car. And also, people get this twisted that if you don't identify with a race or a nationality or something like that, it means that you're ignoring or not able to address problems, which is, let's go back to the car analogy. You might not be identified with your car. Of course you're not going to be. Your car isn't you. But if a problem comes up, like your oil light comes on, you need your oil to be changed, you are going to fix that instead of ignoring it, but you know it's not you. So you can fix it from a detached perspective. So that's one way to look at it. And so we have to address these disharmonies going on with our collective. We have to. You can't ignore these things. Okay? And it must be met with compassion and love, ultimately. Compassion is the word of the day. Okay? Because if you're reacting to any of these events, any of these atrocities, any of this systematic racism going on, any of these systematic injustices going on, any of these systematic insults to freedom going on, if you're reacting with something other than compassion, you are a part of the problem. So what I'm saying is, if you are a person of color, okay, and you react to this with hatred and anger, if another police killing goes on, if you react with hatred and anger, then that's not a compassionate response. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be outraged because that is very well justified. And if you're a person who's not of color and you dismiss these things, like if someone gets, brutally killed by the police and you say, oh, he shouldn't have worn that hoodie or something like that, that is completely dismissive And that is the antithesis of a compassionate response. So again, we must meet all of this with compassion and love and unity. We must unite in order to rid ourselves of these diseases, these systematic injustices going on. And it really starts with compassion and love. So, yeah, the media is also perpetuating divide around every corner. They're trying to divide us along any line, whether it be race, religion, gender, everything. So if you react to that with compassion, you're not going to allow yourself to be divided and conquered, and you're not going to be played off against other fellow humans. And this also reminds me of there's a part of the book, the Motivation Manifesto, where the author discusses this personal demon of division. And personal demons manifest as collective demons as well. So you could think of division as a collective demon. And how you overcome division is through love and compassion. That is his solution to overcoming division, which I agree with. So it starts at the individual, and that's how we're going to overcome division on the macro level, because the collective is a manifestation of the individual. So again, love and compassion. If you're reacting with something other than love and compassion, you need to reevaluate it. And if you're denying things, you need to reevaluate it, because you can't ignore these systematic injustices either. So, I'm not going to say I have a definitive solution to how to render these problems or how to fix them systematically, but I know it starts at the root. It's going to have to start with teaching children things like meditation in order to observe your thoughts, observe your emotions, and observe your egoic responses to things. And then teaching kids how to really explore the question of who am I? Because if you really explore the question of who you are, you're not going to be rigidly identified with something like a race or rigidly identified with something like your nationality. Because when people are identified with that, Europeans were obviously very identified with being white, and therefore they were able to perpetuate things like slavery, because you view something as different. And when you view something as different than yourself, you're able to dehumanize that other person. So if you see someone just with having different characteristics, but you have the same essence, the same core, you're not going to do that. So we need to teach these things to the youth. And it's going to be slow going to change this on a systematic level, but those things need to be incorporated in what kids learn at an early age, so we can meet division with love and compassion. And yeah, another thing that I wanted to explore was police. So obviously it's out of control, especially in the US. We're seeing the inklings of a police state, and that's no good. And also, the police are recruiting people with low IQs. They're recruiting people with psycho or sociopathic tendencies. And what do you get when you recruit these kind of people? You get egotists who have sociopathic tendencies that aren't too smart, so they're going to obey orders. So you're going to have people with all of these tendencies that skew towards racism and skew towards violence, and that's where you get these police atrocities from. So I don't know how we're going to, reduce this police state. I'm not sure. But the solution that I propose with teaching kids, that is a long-term strategy that will work if you teach every kid that. But a solution has, the only one that I can really say is definitive is, what can you do today? And that's what it really comes down to, because we can all point the finger, we can all complain about something that's happening, but ultimately the change starts from what we're doing in our lives. So of course you have to meet everything with compassion, or you're going to be a part of the problem. Like I said before, you can't blame it on the victim saying he shouldn't have done that. if there is what is essentially a public execution and you are blaming the victim for that, that is not showing compassion, not in the slightest bit. So show compassion. That is the word of the day, and that's the big takeaway from this. And also, don't participate in division. Okay, you are not your nationality, you are not your race, you are not your gender. Those are just adjectives. You are much more than that. So don't participate in division. Be kind to everyone. Okay? It's very, very simple. Show compassion and be kind to everyone. And I'll just throw in a little action in there. Perform a random act of kindness to one person today. Okay? Because we must meet all of these injustices and all of these tragedies with love and compassion. So that's one way to do it. Perform one random act of kindness today. Okay? Yep, that's all I got. It's all about compassion, baby. One love. I love you guys.